afternoon, everyone. I'm joined by a very wonderful man, Richard Lamflow. We were just talking about your name, weren't we?
Yeah, we were. That's it.
And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today, Richard. And thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, if you're watching, I'm going to be chatting with Richard, who is from an organisation called My Employment Passport, which is going to tell us quite a bit about that. All about creating employment opportunities for young people with additional learning needs, which is obviously something that's incredibly important, and tiny percentages of people with additional learning needs are employed, I think. So it's something that it's so important, and I'm really grateful, Richard, that you're taking the time to join.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. If you are watching on YouTube, folks, please don't forget to subscribe. So we're doing lots of stuff, trying to do it more and more without being too annoying, with folks like Richard who are just doing amazing stuff. So yeah, please do hit subscribe on there, and I'm going to drop this on there as well. Richard is launching a free course at Studio TV, which is available and there now to take a look at, but we'll chat more about that as time goes on. So excited about that. Richard, I wonder if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself, and how we met, how we were introduced, because it's one of those lovely little stories.
Yeah, well, we met through Jackie Shepherd at the University of Brighton, and I was going to make a film for Jackie. She commissioned me to make the uni commissioned me to make a short video helping young autistic children transition from primary to mainstream. Primary to secondary.
Yep.
And I was so looking forward to that, because the kids had written the script and there was just some really lovely ideas, and the teachers it was a totally kind of interactive thing. And it was the week of lockdown, and it was like the camera equipment was in the hall, we were ready to go, and it was then that phone call to Jackie saying, or she phoned me to say, no, it's off.
Oh,
so
no.
hopefully next year we'll do it. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I was so grateful to be introduced to you, because I had some wonderful chats, and the stuff you do is fantastic. And yeah, lots of thank yous, basically, is from me. I believe you want to ask me about my Christmas decorations.
I do want to ask you about your Christmas decorations now. Have you got them out yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aaron's been asking for them for weeks and weeks.
So Aaron's 8, isn't he?
He's 8.
And when I was 8, so my dad, it was my treat to open the Christmas decoration box. And you know what it is, you open the box as an 8-year-old, and it's maybe not quite as exciting as the year before. Some of the lights look a little bit tired, and my dad would always say, right, leave it now, I'm going to do it. And we had those things, this was a really old lighting set, and if one light didn't work, he'd have to change the bulbs and all this kind of thing. So, and do you remember, you look at some of the baubles, and they're missing things, aren't they? They're missing the top bit. So you've got paper clips, and you're making those Christmas decorations nice. And it used to be quite a big thing. It's like a 2-hour thing, and they're all laid out on the floor. Finally, the lights work. So I'm kind of envisaging perhaps something similar at yours, and maybe people watching this.
Yeah, you always plug them in before you put them on the tree.
Yeah. So you're waiting for the Christmas tree, and you've been told it's being delivered at 4 o'clock. Ding, 4 o'clock, you go outside and there it is. But rather than a nice looking Christmas tree, he says, knocking his water, it's half a Christmas tree. So what the guy's done, what the delivery guy's done, he's chopped it in half, because he got a little bit nervous. They'd put the wrong amount of Christmas trees on. So you've got the bottom half of the Christmas tree, and the delivery before is the top half. So my question to you, Ian, is, would you put your beautiful Christmas lights that you've updated for 2 hours, would you put them on that tree?
No.
So what would you do?
A new tree.
You'd want a new tree.
A fall tree.
You want the fall tree. So let me come on to the analogy now, and stay with me, people. The decorations, if you like, the baubles, I'm kind of thinking those are programs that exist out there for young people with additional learning needs to help them to talk a little bit about the programs, for example, post 19. So there's all sorts of things on all sorts of baubles. Like, so the one people know most is supported internships. So this is a supported internship bauble. This is the gold standard. This is the one run by Derby College. They do a fantastic supported internship program, and I would urge anybody to get in touch with Derby College, because what they do, they kind of make it live with the other programs and schemes and things that they run.
Okay.
So what I love about, they're very flexible the way they do it. So some of the other baubles, things like programs run by local authorities, often provided there'll be a local provider, there might be an in-house team from the local authority, perhaps a supported employment team. That will be one of the baubles on the, that we're laying out. Then there's things by the DWP. There's Access to Work, which is a really good scheme.
Yeah, it's just run by sort of large charities as well, so kind of the national charities.
Yeah, so the large charities, they often have schemes that they then kind of disseminate out locally, to where you are. So that's the sort of bauble thing. But the problem is about that is that you get out your bauble and this one's looking a bit tatty, or this one you're convinced it's changed, and you look at it and, oh yes, it's got a big red cross on it. And you're a bit worried about this bauble, because this is a program that you've been promised is going to be good for your son or daughter. And let's say they're 19 and you've been waiting for this program, they're about to leave FE college, you've got this program, but you're a bit nervous, you've seen the Red Cross, you phone up the provider and they say, look, we're really sorry, the criteria's changed, your daughter can only join us now at 21. And I'm thinking, I mean, how devastating is that for a parent? To you're rooting for this opportunity, and suddenly you've got 2 years where you're 21, and that's probably got nothing to do with the provider. It's just the words come down from the power, or they might have changed the criteria. Years ago, when I worked for an agency like that, we could work with young people who had EHCPs or didn't. Now, probably, I would imagine there are very few programs now sponsored by the local authority that give that flexibility. They only say EHCP young people. So the problem is about our baubles, about programs, is that they change, okay? And that post-19, they change. Now, what's happening at school is that, of course, what is happening is that programs are beginning to start at school, which is great. Yeah. I would often run employability programs. So that's is that
everywhere? Could that be mainstream?
Yeah, mainstream and special schools. So people are getting it. They're saying, yes, the earlier we run initiatives, let's not call it a program, let's call it initiative. The earlier we build young people's aspirations within a school setting, the better that is. And as I say, I would do some of these programs.
Even in primary?
Now, and primary, primary is so important because, okay, we won't be probably running programs there, but yes, primary children, it's as important to encourage the dreams of primary school children with additional needs as it is without.
So my comment on that, I guess, is, and anybody that's watched any of these before, because I banged on about it, Aaron, who we mentioned before, who's 8 years old, he has Down syndrome, and I think, obviously I can't speak for everybody who's the parent of a child or a young person with any additional needs. The process that I went through, and it is certainly the process that I know a lot of people have been through, is when you get a diagnosis, there is part of you that grieves the child you thought you were getting, and there's a bit of a journey to go on there, and it's things like marriage and children, and careers is one of them.
Yeah.
And he's, I say, he's 8, and thinking about where he ends up from a career point of view is a massive thing. And I don't, and if it's like any of the rest of the services that people are trying so hard to make amazing, and as a parent, it's quite often working your way through treacle. It's it's very sticky and very hard work. I imagine the employment program stuff is the picture, the landscape can be quite similar.
Yeah, but the reason why I have optimism, Ian, is because primary school teachers are that they often actually hold the key. In fact, all teachers do hold the key because they're seeing how young people absorb and apply information.
Okay.
And genuinely, how those young people apply it in a classroom setting probably isn't going to shift that much from when they're in employment. It's the way you like to learn as a young person, the way I liked to learn.
I like how you call me a lot of young person, by the way. You can call me a young person whenever you want.
It's similar. It's similar to anyone. So
yeah.
So school is really important, but actually more important than the baubles, than the decorations, are the Christmas lights. And the Christmas lights are represented by the people. The people, and I often talk about that it's the small providers, it's those lovely, friendly projects that are dotted all over the country, and I know so many of them, and I can be quite proud to say, yeah, I worked for a project like that in about 1994. We were a tiny community-led initiative, and people would drop into our little office we had in Battersea and say hello, and it was built on friendship, and it was built on community, and those things still exist. Those supporters, those natural supporters still exist, but over the last 30 years, we've kind of professionalized everything. Suddenly everybody has to have an action plan how to get into work. And I'm thinking, well, okay, did I have an action plan when I was young and I wanted to pay? So it's kind of getting away from, well, to give you an example.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
I started as a volunteer running music and drama groups, and then within about a year, I was a paid member of staff, and I was supporting people into paid work. And within a year, I suddenly had this hat that said employment support professional. Ooh, how scary. I was exciting, maybe. I was an employment. I no longer wasn't a volunteer running a music group. I was an employment support professional. And I made the mistake of looking at our filing cabinet of about 70 people who were in work. And I kind of assumed, we got all those people their jobs. But we didn't, Ian. We didn't. We got some of them their jobs. The rest got their jobs through their friends, through their families, through their neighbours, these natural supporters. So, that's why I think that's the model we need to look back to. We need to look forward to. It's kind of back and it's forward, because in the 80s, in the mid 80s and early 90s, we didn't have special schemes, or not many. No. We just people got into jobs because their mate helped them out. Did you want a hand with the interview? Do you want to, so that's what that was. And I have examples of these natural supporters.
So you're thinking really that actually, if there was a way to not formalize but make it so we're all working together a little bit more to seek out more organically these natural connections.
That's it. That's really totally it. Okay. So an example of a family member who was a natural supporter. So I met a young man called Blake in 2013, and he his natural supporter, his key supporter, was his brother John. Okay. So key supporters are normally one step away from mum or dad. So mum or dad are so important, or mum and dad, but the key supporter, because mums and dads, they don't really, and the young people don't want mum or dad particularly ringing up an employer and all this kind of stuff. But the key supporter, a brother, an uncle, a neighbour, they're that link. And Blake's key supporter was his brother John. John was a youth worker, and I made a video CV with Blake, and it's on YouTube. It's called Blake Edwards Video CV.
Yeah.
John took the link to B&Q in Burgess Hill, who were recruiting at the time. They saw Blake's video CV, gave me a call. I supported Blake at the interview. Job done. And Blake has been at B&Q ever since. And now he's a role model. He comes to speak to the young people that I work with in schools and the year 11s. You know, I do a session and I say, is there anybody you'd like back at the end? Oh, we want Blake back, you know. So Blake's the kind of, Blake's a hero. Yeah. So Blake's an example from the past. But to give you an example in the future, to take it right into now, and this is something you might not have occurred to, or people out there. So I've got a friend called Maria in Crawley, and Maria is what I call a super mum. So not only is she bringing up her little boy Ryan, wait, he's 12 now, so she's bringing up Ryan to be such an amazing human being, but she's also campaigning, and she's making accessible things available at Gatwick Airport. So Maria's doing amazing things with Ryan. Ryan is a lovely, lively young boy. He loves cricket. He loves, I think, golf, Star Wars. He can sing a Biffy Clyro song kind of instantly, remembering all the words. Boom, you know, he's got it. He's autistic. He has, I suppose, quite high support needs around communication. But guess what? Put Ryan on a pony, and suddenly his support needs around his communication are actually not very high. They're quite low.
Okay.
And put Ryan with a lovely supporter he has called Georgie, who walks the pony around. They are a wonderful team. So for 2 hours, I think it's 2 hours every week. So Georgie is a natural key supporter. Okay. And if we think about Ryan in 5 years' time or 6 years' time, who's going to be the best person to ease Ryan into a job? Think of the knowledge that Georgie has. If she, you know, stays at the stables, as she might, she will have known Ryan for 5 or 6 years. All right. Ryan sits in front of me. Let's say I'm in Crawley at the time with my employment support worker hat on. Who's going to be better to support Ryan into a job? It's going to be Georgie. It's not. Now, I'm going to have some ideas, but I can tell Georgie that they're fairly easy, the sort of liaising with employers. So that's what I mean about natural key supporters. But we're not thinking like that at the moment. So this is the...
I really like that. Before you show us what you're going to show us, just let me mention for 1 second, folks, if you've got a question, then please do feel free to ask a question. I've just let me put a couple of these up as well, Richard. Nadine said that as an ex-nursery schools teacher, she'd love to see this stuff on the curriculum, which is wonderful. Yeah, I think that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Somebody on LinkedIn has said the Christmas tree lights that are in series and need every bulb working. Do you remember what a nightmare that was? And then Maria has commented about the grieving process. Yeah, thank you, Maria.
And there's Ryan.
And that's Ryan. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Ryan.
The younger man of the three.
The younger man. Yeah, of course. Yeah. You were going to show us something. Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see this, but this is the model of. It's a flower in the middle of community. And the flower is the young person, and the flower is holding a placard that says, I am unique. And that's what we celebrate. First of all, we celebrate that uniqueness. Okay. And then the key supporter is on the shoulder of the young person. And the earlier we can build these key supporter relationships, the earlier families can think, who would be the key supporters in my family setup? Who are the people who know Ryan, who know Aaron, who, and the earlier you start, the better. You know, and that key supporter who maybe would take your little boy along to, say, a football match in 3 years' time, isn't that a lovely step? That he doesn't go with daddy, he goes with a key supporter.
So you put a different setting and start to broaden the settings out. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Absolutely. So that's the context of, I suppose, my approach.
It's a lovely message there, Richard, from Maria, just so you've seen it.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. And it's so important, and there are so many young people like Ryan dotted all over the country, and also, I mean, Ryan is in school, but on my Twitter feed, I know of young people who school is just too stressful for, and certainly at the moment, it's just too stressful for them. So they're at home, and perhaps school, I mean, Blake won't mind me telling you that his school time wasn't easy, and he was, I think, was excluded from one school. College was a better environment for him, and that's when I met him. So it's finding that natural support.
So go back to your picture of baubles and lights and trees.
Yeah,
which is very seasonal. My tree's still completely the wrong shape. So if I go and put those, whatever baubles, Red Cross or not, on, what's the answer to my tree problem?
Okay, so the answer to the tree problem, this whole this system that we've set up over the last, well, why do we know the tree's not right? Why do we know the shape's not right? Because 6% of people with learning disabilities and 13% of autistic people have paid work. So the tree is the wrong shape. Those stats, Ian, they've never changed in the 25, 30 years. So we have to change the shape of the tree. Okay, I'm one of the little people. I would love to bend the ear of ministers and government and say that the model's wrong. I can't do that. But what we can do, us little people, we can maybe change from the bottom.
Yeah.
That the idea that this, changing from the bottom, because so when people, as I hope they will, access the free tutorial that's available now, it's a 1 hour package. I've made 5 videos. There's a PDF with all sorts of information. So if the people watching this have put aside that hour, you would totally get how I see this vision of changing the shape of the tree. The lights, all the people, there's still some fantastic people who totally get it. But it's the systems that don't work very well. Okay, it's that. And as I say, going back to things like this idea of having an action plan, again, let's think, when I was 17 and I wanted my first paid job, and I thought, oh, it's Sainsbury's, I knew there were roles going. I didn't have an action plan to get, I had an action plan. It had one point on it. It said, have a word with my best mate, Tim, who works for Sainsbury's. He'll help me get an interview. And that was it. That was the end of the action plan. I had a word with Tim, my really good friend. He worked there already. He would have a word with personnel in Sainsbury's. Tim gave me a little bit of advice about what to put on the application form. And he handed it to the right person at Sainsbury's. I got the interview, and I was a trolley. I pushed trolleys at Sainsbury's. And I tell my young people this story. I didn't have an action plan. I'm not saying plans aren't a good idea, but as a sector, we're kind of obsessed with plans. We're obsessed with them. And well, there's a couple of questions that occurred to me there. It kind of, question one is, well, whoever came up with the plan, that's the right model, that's the right plan for all these people, all these neurodiverse people. Oh, but there's kind of one plan that we've all got to fit to. So that, I'm kind of thinking, well, that's a bit weird. And the other thing is, well, what happens if the plan isn't working?
Well, do you know what, Richard? I think if we've learned anything this year, if we think about our children and we think about school and all, you know, all the different things that we've had to deal with, whether it's accessing healthcare, whatever, the picture of everything, it's just thrown the whole thing up in the air again, hasn't it? And gone, do you know what? Actually, there's a really good opportunity here to look at some of this stuff. You know, I think the idea that school is always the best place. I'm going to get in trouble now, but always the best place for every child. It's not, you know. So that's, you know, and it's okay to have that conversation. Absolutely okay to have that conversation and go, let's look at programs. I think, let me put this up. Jem has said hello from Opus in the Midlands. We're in the tree changing business as well. Welcome, Jem. That's awesome. Catherine has said, I'd love to help change the perception of trees, and I think that's on the same lines. I think we've got the same kind of. And our friend Lynn, who we know and love, has popped up and said, I love the focus on key supporters. It is a really wonderful thing to be focusing on, and it just, when you think, I know there isn't a big argument, isn't there, for. We were chatting before about the Down Syndrome Association has a program called WorkFit that's successful. I don't know masses about it, but I know, I only really know, anything I do know is about Down syndrome, really. And I know that there are specific things that we should be considering as part of that. But that's where these smaller programs can bridge the gap between your key supporter and your employer without getting, am I right in what you said, without getting bogged down in all the mechanisms of government, etc.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it one way, another way, if I go back to Maria's example of Georgie, who works at the stables, if you think of the knowledge and the skills that Georgie has built up with, say, 5 years with Ryan, what a waste not to use those skills. What are we doing? Yeah. So there has to be a way. And yet, if I said to Job Centre Plus or somebody, well, we want you to use Georgie, well, they'd go, well, but actually, creatively these days, I mean, Access to Work, somebody like Georgie, she could be involved as a job coach. So, you know, we are learning to think. The people, in my experience, Ian, the people, and I've met so many fantastic of the little organisations, what I call they're the people who really think creatively, and you know, and get to know their local communities. Yeah, really get to know them.
It's got to be absolute golden in that, hasn't there? Absolute golden. Yeah, just going to put this in front of folks so you can see it. If you go to Scudio.tv. There, right there, front page, second row left column here is Richard's course there. It's available complete for free. As things move around, we'll put it at the top, Richard. But that's there and available for free. What does that takes an hour to go through?
Yeah, it takes an hour to go through. I've made it hopefully quite lively. There's a few little funny bits.
Amazing. In it. I love it. There's so much lovely content in it. And Richard is so creative. I know if the likes of Maria here will know this. Richard is so incredibly creative. It's just beautiful stuff. What do we get as part of that? And there's a series of videos. There's a workbook or something in there as well.
Yeah. So there's a workbook that is quite long, but it gives the real practical examples. So I suggest in the workbook, in my experience, what works well in schools, for example. So for something like the year sevens, if you just have like one event a year, and I often call it I would like a paid job day. I mean, imagine the fun you can have with that. All the year sevens, you know, what would I like to just pay? And you invite in some local employers, you put up the posters, and it's just a buzzy day when the kids, and employers are up for that. They love those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's so that's a lovely it takes some planning. I get that. But so for the year sevens and for the earlier years, it's those kind of things. And then as you go through the older years, then in the workbook, I'm kind of recommending other kind of activities. And I give in the videos just practical examples of how I outreach to employers. Now
that's really good, really good, because that's what we need, isn't it? You can't. Yeah. That's the bit where I think I'd probably get stuck.
Yeah. And of course the context of COVID, and it's dreadful at the moment. And the only positive I can say on the COVID thing is it's meaning we're having to draw breath a little bit. It is the worst time at the moment for people to get paid jobs. Employers actually, right now, your standard supermarket, they want people to be able to hit the ground running. And with the best will in the world, our young people will probably hit the ground walking. Yep. They'll need a little bit of support, but yep. And right now is the worst time. It is the worst time. So what I'm saying to parents at the moment, especially, I'm just saying, hold on.
Yeah,
we've just got to get, and schools. As schools, it's the employability courses I used to run in schools. They stopped in March. They had they stopped. And
yeah. Let me say on that actually, and Richard's part of this, and we're still working on what this actually looks like. But Richard's course launching. Richard is also working towards your own program, aren't you, as well? Which we're going to mention a little bit about in a moment.
Yeah.
We're working on some stuff where at Studio TV we're pulling together a number of partners to try and make it so we've got some really, really lovely resources to help support people into paid employment, with a particular focus on additional learning needs, that kind of stuff going on as well. So it is something that's on our radar more broadly. So do kind of stick around and watch out for stuff in the new year. Richard's going to be right in the thick of that. Do you know that? Lynn's got a really cool question for you. Do you know any train drivers? Do you know? That's such a fab question.
Yeah, and Lynn, it's an absolutely relevant question, because do I tell the story, David's story, in the videos? No, I don't actually, but it's another video. Lynn, if you Google David Mason's journey, so he's a young man that I knew in Wandsworth back in 2010. Anyway, that's a story that young man now works for Network Rail.
Wow.
He loves trains. He's not a train driver, but he monitors the departure and arrival of trains.
That's awesome.
He's earning more than me. Okay? So good for him. He deserves it. Okay.
Awesome.
He is an amazing. Well, when I knew him, he was 23, so he'll be now a 32-year-old man. And it's these stories that happen. They really do happen.
Yeah.
And they happen because of people. They happen because of connections. David got a placement at Network Rail through a key supporter of the family. It was a family friend who helped organize. It was their next door neighbor. So you see where I'm coming from. It's these little connections where we create the jobs.
That's wonderful. That is such a fab story. Lynn says, brilliant. Look at the story. It is wonderful. I know of somebody else who has Down syndrome who is, I think, in their mid-20s. And if you know XPO Logistics, he works at XPO Logistics. And basically they say if every employee was like, I can't remember his name, if every employee was like him, we would be a wonderful setup in that, it's just that let's get away from this idea of, go back to right at the beginning when I said about the grieving process, if somebody had said to me back then, actually it's harder, but don't just think everything's just done and dusted now. It's not true. It's not true.
So Ian, I mean, talking about this model of support I go, and I'm really sorry. I don't think it's, maybe if I do.
I think your light that's making you extra handsome is
right. I think I can just about see that. So can you see the young person is in the middle of the community?
Yeah, the flower. Yeah.
And there are 9 flowers that support the young person. Now, these are what I call the flowers of foundation. And I suppose it's taken me 30 or 25 years to actually nail down what these 9 flowers are, apart from the main one in the middle. They're not things like CV writing or interview practice or identifying health and safety in the workplace. I promise you, they're not those things. They're the big things. They're the big, important things. They're things like family. They're things like communication. Okay. They're things like work ethic. I've never seen an employability program that actually even mentions family or work ethic. And I'm thinking, what? Are you crazy? The family, the parents is such. I know my parents were really important, and it's the same for any young person, and extra important for people with additional needs, the support you get from family.
Yeah.
You know, so what we do is we look at those flowers, and what I want to be able to do, I mean, my dream for my employment passport, that as well as schools and colleges, my dream is that parents groups, I want to go back to the smallest communities, parents, they can run the sessions. You know, what is to stop a group of parents getting together and running a session for, say, 4 or 5 of their children? They could have a community, a village hall from, say, 3 o'clock till 4 o'clock, one day a week. Why not? And why do we always have to keep these things within services?
Yep.
No, we can do it within communities.
Yeah, we can do so much more, can't we, by taking hold of it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Let me put something up in front of you, Richard, which is a really lovely message, and you've kind of disappeared slightly, so bear with me just 1 second. You forgive me. But Penny on LinkedIn has said, I'm the enterprise coordinator for Coast to Capital LEP and oversee all of the Southern Send cluster of schools and colleges for our region. It would be amazing to see how I can promote your courses with the careers leaders of the education centres in line. Please do get in touch.
Yeah,
so that's amazing, Richard. So that's lovely.
I know of Penny's name, and I've known the Coast to Capital because they are my region. So I've known them over years, and it's lovely. It's those links because they're the people who can really help move things forward. Little steps. Yeah. Let's change the tree. Let's change the shape, and the results that they will slowly start to change. And employers embrace those kind of changes.
Thank you, Richard. Just let us wrap up and say one more time that Richard's free course is available at Scudio TV. You will, once you've signed up for that, you're kind of there, as long as you stay in there, you're there for Richard to be able to reach out to once your program starts to get more next year. But you can also check out myemploymentpassport.com, which is just launched. There's very little on it at the minute, isn't it? It's just a holding page.
It's just a holding page and asking people to express an interest.
Yeah, so if you want to go and have a look at that, folks, and register your interest there, that would be amazing. Please
because the more people who are registering their interest, the more I can shape the final initiative that's going to include all those people. So that really helps me. What I'll just say very quickly about the free offer at the moment, when parents watching this, when you go on it, I know it's a bit focused towards schools and the voluntary sector and but it's so for you. It's so for parents. Okay, just every time I say school, think, oh, my parents group. Right. So yeah, that's what I want.
Okay,
because
that's cool.
Parents, they get it, Oh, and interestingly, of course, many advisors within schools, and they're also parents, aren't they?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
And,
of course.
you know,
Yeah,
so they get it even more.
that's awesome. Right, let's wrap it up.
Okay.
So Penny has popped up again and said, I'm determined not only to change the tree, but to create a forest of opportunities. That's
The metaphors are just running out of control. I love it.
And Jay Clark has said, thank you for raising awareness of this issue. Looking forward to the course. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And the last thing I'm going to put up before we say farewell, folks, is it's from Maria. Ryan is going to make the best shelf stacker ever. Perfectly.
Oh my God! His shelf stacking will be absolutely genius shelf stacking, and that's it. That's it.
To be the best.
That's it.
Awesome.
That's the
That's
best.
what it's all about. Richard, honestly, it's so I love chatting to you when we just pop up on a Zoom and just have a conversation, or whether it's on this. Genuinely, I do. You brighten my day.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so grateful for what you're doing. And I know there are families and people who are in paid employment in no small part thanks to you. So thank you for everything you're doing.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining me.
Have a lovely
want
Christmas.
to say anything before we wrap it up? Is there anything final?
Just to everybody to have a lovely Christmas and to relax and look at 2021 as hopefully the kind of new beginning, and maybe a kind of perhaps a new beginning for young people with additional learning needs, that there's a kind of a bit of a brighter future. That's what I hope.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, thank you everybody for joining us. It's been really wonderful to see you. If you know where we are if you have any questions. But Richard, one more time, thank you so much and take care.
Bye.